SmartSuite now provides the ability to create interactive dashboards, portals, and customized workflow pages. Now, I gotta be honest, when I first heard that SmartSuite was packaging up all this amazing functionality and calling it updates to their dashboards, my mind was a little like, okay, well, all of these SaaS companies have dashboards, and simply calling this updates to our dashboards really does not do it justice. And here's the reason why. Because so far, all these work management tools that are out there really have focused on data entry. And so they focus on different views, which are nice to be able to have, right? You can have a grid view and a Kanban view and a Gantt view and a map view. And we have all these different ways of entering in information and then being able to visualize that information on the screen. But SmartSuite is really taking this the next step further to be able to say, hey, how do we create this really tailored experience around how you want to actually interact with that on a given page, as opposed to having all these extra button clicks and ways of entering in information that just doesn't feel right. And when you take this people and process-oriented architecture and you combine it with the fact that SmartSuite is so good at letting you see your data across all your different solutions in your workspace, this is a really powerful combination. In this video, we're going to work through setting up a simple dashboard so you can see the kinds of functionality that we have access to, and then we're going to take a look at some more complex dashboards to see really the full breadth of what you can do inside of SmartSuite. Hi, I'm Dan Lehman from AutomationHelpers.com, and we help companies like yours get automated with portals, apps, and integrations. If you haven't gotten started yet with SmartSuite, you can do so for free using the affiliate link in the description below. The really cool part is that these dashboards are going to be available regardless of which plan that you're on. So one of the first questions we have to ask ourselves is, where do we want this dashboard to live? So I'm inside of my workspace in SmartSuite, and as I'm taking a look, I've got different solutions. So I've got a CRM and project management. And one of the things that I like as an executive is to be able to have my dashboards in one spot so I can go to and say, hey, what do we have for marketing and what do we have for sales and services and support and our EOS? And so I like having a dedicated dashboard solution where I can go and see all of my information with really one click. And other times you're going to want to take a look at this contextually. So I've got a CRM here, and if I click and open up this solution, one of the things that I could do, I could either create dashboards at the individual table level, like if I have accounts and I have a sales dashboard and I have contacts and I have a contact dashboard. But one of the things that I found myself doing is creating a standalone table, not really because I need extra data called dashboards, but just so I have a spot in the UI to put this. So I've created a table here called dashboards, which can store the different dashboards that I want to be able to create. Now, the cool part is I'm really doing this on a temporary basis because SmartSuite has already told us that coming down the road, you're going to be able to create dashboards that are really decoupled from any of your solutions. Because again, you can be pulling data from your project management solution and data from your CRM solution, and you can view it in one spot. So really, we'll be able to get rid of all the tables across the top, and we'll be able to have this more kind of dedicated standalone dashboard. But for today, we're just going to create it in here inside of our dashboards. Now, the use case I want to talk about is a client we were working with was going through the process of creating their different customers inside of their environment and SmartSuite. And SmartSuite offers functionality around deduplicating contacts to make sure that, hey, we've got a workflow on the back end that checks and can look against something like an email address to make sure that we don't have multiple copies of this contact. But the problem around this has been the user experience, because if you have some automation that happens on the back end, that really doesn't tell the user on the front end exactly what's happening. So here's what this would look like in their current flow. So I've got accounts and contacts, and what we actually did is we created some additional business logic with form submissions. So we said, when we create this new record, we'd press that new record button and they'd put in someone's information, and then we'd have it look across and say, okay, is there already an account that has the same name or that has the same email domain that it's from? Or do we already have a contact with that same email address? With this business logic, we were then going ahead and creating the appropriate contact records or associating it with the existing accounts if they already existed. But think about that user flow. It's kind of painful. If we want to see if that contact exists, we could do something like on our contacts, go and add a filter, and we could say name is, but actually we can't say is, so we got to change this to contains. Name contains, and then we could search for someone like Angela to see if that's present. And then we click off, and then we see there's an Angela contact record. And then we expand this record because we want to make sure that all the right information is there. And then we say, okay, that's actually not the same Angela. So we'll X off of here. And then we'll either in our contacts or our form submissions, then go ahead and create a new record. See how many different steps this takes? It's a lot for something as simple as just saying, hey, I just want to check and see, does an Angela contact already exist to be able to help me as I'm visually going through my process? So let's go ahead and create a simple dashboard that makes this a much better user experience. I'm going to click on my dashboards table here. I've got this demo dashboard. At any point, again, regardless of where you want to put this, you're going to click on that button to create a new view. Now, if you click that, you're going to see all our different view types, and the dashboard is the one that's already existed. This isn't really anything different in terms of the process of creating a dashboard. So you can click on that dashboard. You can choose whether you want this to be public or private, and you can go ahead and click on Create View. And here's where it gets interesting. Here's where we can now start to add widgets, and widgets are the different components that we want to be part of our pages of the dashboard or our tabs of the dashboard. So from here, you can see we've got these different things like heroes and banners and headings, and SmartSuite's done a lot of work on updating and creating brand new widgets that are going to make it easier to be able to navigate throughout our process. But before we get too deep in the weeds here, I actually want to talk about our navigation. If we click on this gear icon, we can see our dashboard settings. We've got our general settings. We can choose what this looks like in terms of, do we have a description for this and where that displays? But really an important part is this navigation. The most important part is whether we're going to enable tabs. So if we have tabs, here's where we can now instruct what's this going to look like horizontally across our screen. Now, tabs don't have to be tied to specific tables, so we don't have to go contacts and accounts and opportunities like you'd typically see in a CRM. Instead, we could have a customer creation process, and we could have one for lead follow-up, and we'll have one for customer success. You'll want to make sure that you toggle this to enabled, and now you can see you have those different tabs across the top, and within each of those different tabs, you can add their own widgets. Now, some additional things we can do to personalize this experience, we can add a logo, and that's going to appear in the upper left-hand corner. And then we also have the ability to add different action buttons. Now, we can add action buttons in different parts of the screen. If we add it here, this is going to display in the upper right-hand location. For now, we'll just label this one button, and you've got a couple different options. You could link to an external URL, or you could run a script. So this is perfect for something like sending a payload to a webhook if we want to process something in Zapier or Make. Then once we're done, we've got this nice little button up at the top. From here, we've got some footer elements that we can change, and we can change the style as well in terms of how compact this displays, and maybe we want to be able to add our own coloration of what this is going to look like. I'm going to save these changes, and now let's go ahead and add our first widget. We'll add a hero widget here to give a little description of what we're going to do. So I'll change this to create customers without the dupes. And I want to update this image. So I'm going to upload my own image here, select a file. Let's upload that. Now this looks a little bit funky in terms of how it's displaying. So instead of a cover, we'll change the settings here and we'll do contain. That looks good. We'll add that widget. Let's add another widget. And as you take a look at these, a lot of these are really visual in nature, which I think a ton of people really enjoy. The ones I'm actually most excited about are being able to select records and display parts of records on a screen. That's what I think is the most powerful here. But there's so many amazing things we can do here, like displaying an FAQ. I know a ton of people are using that feature. So I'm going to go down into this record display one, and this record selector is super powerful. Let's go ahead and add this. Instead of record selector, I'm going to change this to contact, and we're going to tell it where's that source data from. So it's not from this dashboards table, it's going to be from our contacts. And here in the selector, we could certainly filter it or sort it. So maybe I want to say, let's only have the ones where it's type of customer as opposed to partner or some other type of record here. We could sort this differently. Do we want it by alphabetical? Do we want the length of time they've been a customer? And then in our selection dropdown, we can also choose fields to display. This is what's going to display in the card itself. So we've got the name, which concatenates the name of the person with the name of their company or account. But I might also want to have their email to make it easy to be able to see, here we go, here's that person. So I might have multiple people with the same name. Maybe there's multiple John Smiths, and I want to be able to check against their email domain or their email. And then in terms of the style, we've got a couple different options, especially around, do we want this to be a drop-down that we actually click into, or do we want it to display as a list? I think in this case, I'm going to keep this as a drop-down. And again, we can change that coloration. Do we want this to be neutral, white, or a custom color behind it. Let's add this. And now I've got my contact selector on the screen, but that looks pretty wide. One more thing I want to mention here is that you'll have this toggle between view and edit. And this is really nice because you don't want to accidentally be moving stuff around the screen when you're just trying to interact with the data. So in this case, I'm going to keep this toggled on into edit mode. Now here, right now, you can see this stretches across the whole screen for this contact selector. That's not really what I want. So I'm just going to change the spacing of this by dragging it over a little bit. That looks okay. So from here, I want to be able to search for a contact. So I can click into that dropdown and be able to search for that contact person's information. I click it and nothing happens because we have no other widgets on the page that are associated with the selector. So let's go ahead and add another widget here. And instead of just being the selector, now once that record is selected, we've picked that correct record, we want it to show a subset of that person's contact information so we can just vet it visually to determine, is this the right person? So again, we've got an option under our record display, and this is going to be to look at our record details. Again, let's change this to our contact details. You'll notice that this is missing a source. So I'm going to click on this, and this is where we now say, okay, we want this to connect to that contact selector we already built. So we'll click on that. That's going to now filter this to show just that relevant record on the screen. Now let's go ahead and add the fields that we want to display here. So I'll click on Add Field, and first we'll want to show their full name. And now let's add their email. We'll add their account, their department, and location. Now you'll notice as I'm adding these fields, it's kind of doing its own job to determine what width we want to be able to have these. But we can click into any one of these fields and you'll notice that we have different field properties here. So we've got the ability to set permissions, display field name, and help text. So what's kind of cool about this is that SmartSuite is definitely by far the best work management platform when it comes to granular permissions. And if you've already set field level permissions or table level permissions or solution level permissions, these dashboards are going to honor that automatically. But this goes even a step further where we could say, yeah, I'm an administrator. I've got permission to do all these things, but we don't want someone when they're searching for duplicates to accidentally update all this information. So I could say, well, in this case, when it displays on this particular tab, on this screen, on this page that I'm making, in this case, I only want it to be read-only instead of letting me edit it. So again, it's going to take all the permissions. It's going to inherit that already, but you can go even this level deeper of saying, maybe we don't want people to always be editing this on this particular screen. The other thing, if we click on a field like department, we can choose the field width here. Do we want this to display essentially 1 column, 2, 3, or 4? Now this part I find a little bit confusing because this also takes into consideration the screen real estate on the other screen. So if you have this widget and it takes up half the screen, then it's really not going to honor the field width of 1, 2, 3, or 4. So that takes a little bit of getting used to see how you want this, but it's really easy to tweak once you get this set up. So let's go ahead and add this widget. And again, this is way too much screen real estate because the point of this is just to quickly search and see, does this contact exist? And then if it doesn't exist, we want to be able to create a new contact record. So I'm going to slim this down quite a bit and make this a lot skinnier. And you can see that this was now kind of responsive in nature. That's why it really depends on if you want to use those field width settings, because in this case, it really doesn't matter. They're all 1 column wide in this use case. If I scroll down, I can see that my contact selector got bumped down below. So I can do a couple things. I can either drag this up and kind of position it where I want it, or I can click up and down and reposition these as well. So it's really nice. If you want to drag and drop, you certainly can. Or if you want to be able to use the indicators on here for the arrows, that works as well. So let's go ahead and test this out. If I were to search for a different contact or click on a different one, here's Camilla, and I want to click, and now I can see that automatically updates with her information. I'm not using any kind of JavaScript that I've written on the back end. This is just automatically reactive. It updates as soon as we pick that record in the selector. So now I want to be able to add one more widget to help us in creating new contact records as they come up. So I'm going to go up to Add Widget, and you would think that this would be something in our record display. We've got record details, record selector. We've got some of these other ones coming soon, but there's really nothing to help us create a record. There's no dedicated widget for that. I'm guessing this is going to be a future feature coming from SmartSuite, but the way we do this today is to be able to handle it through a form. So again, if you remember, I created this form submissions table to be able to intake our contacts that we're creating. I created a quick internal form. Again, this is just included in the SmartSuite platform, the different forms that we have. And I made this really simple in terms of asking for their full name, organization, and email. And then from here, I'm going to click on my sharing settings, and you'll notice that there's this embed code. And you're going to want to take that. There's a little button here where you can copy that URL. Let's copy it. We'll head back into our dashboards. From here, we'll add a widget, and this is where we're going to search for custom code. Now, again, you don't have to know anything about code to be able to implement this, but let's go ahead and click on custom code, and we're going to just call this create contact. And here in the embed HTML is where we're going to paste what we just copied from the other screen. That looks okay. It's got the information we need. Let's go ahead and add that widget. And we can tell, yeah, the spacing's a little bit off. So let's see if we can drag this outside here. And this one, we actually want to take up more screen real estate. So we'll stretch it out to the side. And assuming we had some more fields, this would look good if we kind of made it equal here. And here you go. Now we've got a really simple dashboard. Let me just toggle out of edit here. We've got this nice heading. We can make this look how we want with kind of this blue color scheme that we're using for this particular solution. We've got our contact selector, and we can search to see if a person in the system exists. We can check their contact details because yes, in fact, they are a contact here, or if in fact they aren't a contact, and we try searching for someone like Zane and we can't find it, then we can go ahead and create that record. And now it's got all the different workflow automation logic on the back end to be able to create the contact and account record. Now that we've seen a simple example of creating a dashboard, let's take a look at some other dashboard use cases that you can take as inspiration for your own. So here's another CRM example, but I wanted to show you something really powerful here, which is that we actually have the ability to take those record selectors. We had a very simple example where we were searching for contacts, and we can take that and we can actually chain them together to create more complex logic here. So in this particular use case, we're taking a look at customer orders, and what we're doing is we're selecting an account. And from that account, we're filtering down their orders that they have. And from those orders, now we can choose a specific order to display the details on the screen. So let's go ahead and select this account, and we can say, okay, let's look for about and forever. Notice these orders change. So now I've got order 1 and order 4, and order 1 displays here by default in my order details, but I could change this to order 4, and now it displays all that information. So again, we can chain these together. If I go ahead and edit this, and I open up this one, select order, what it's doing is it's saying, hey, our source data for this is based on the select account, the first one that we had. And then now we've got our linked records of our link to orders from that original account. And then what widgets do we have connected to it? Well, it's got our order details, and that order details is what displays here. So honestly, with just a couple clicks of a button, you can now go from having all these clicks all over the system to have everything condensed with multiple different record types in one single page. And I have to stress how big of a deal that is, because you're not looking at one single table, and now you want to go from the accounts table and you want to be able to go to your orders. Well, now let's click onto a different screen and look at our orders. We're doing this all within one dedicated tab. Let's look through a customer service example. So here you can see we've got the nice branding of the logo up here. We've got that heading like we've used in a couple different cases, but down here we're using this FAQ. And here we can click to toggle open and shut these different answers. You can see we even have links as a part of it. And so this is really where, again, we're baking that process right into what we're doing with the data. We're not saying, hey, go out and check out our SOP on this Notion doc or somewhere else in the system, a disparate smart doc that we have. Instead, we can do everything directly here. Now, the part I'm excited about in the future is to be able to have this dynamically populated, say, from a table of FAQs. Right now, this is static data if we were to edit this, but in the future, this is going to be so that we can actually pull in this data from a different data source. Now, if we look at our support tickets, let's take a look and we can see we've got our active support tickets. Again, we're choosing based on our customer, and we've got our ticket details that display here. We can have charts or have different metrics that display on the side. They're doing a similar thing here with our new ticket form. That's like how we had the form on the previous page to be able to submit that. And then we've got lots of information. I prefer a little bit more simplicity, but this is just to give you the idea of what can be done here. So now, in addition to creating the tickets and seeing a specific ticket, we could be able to show all the active tickets by an assignment. We could have that chart. Can we click on that chart and have it drillable? We sure can. Can we click into that record and have it open it up? We sure can. So now you're seeing just this incredible power of what can be done. We don't have to navigate everywhere. We can have one consolidated point from which we're accessing all the information we need for our specific workflow that we do inside the business. Now, let me show you one more really cool example of something you can do, which is to say, maybe you have a portfolio, and this could be corporate, or in this particular use case, it's an individual's portfolio, but we can make it look really nice on the screen. We've got all these different elements. We've got information about their work and portfolio design here. We can have different iframes and embed content on the page. So this could come from Figma, or it could come from any other thing that we can essentially embed on the page itself. And the crazy part here is you could take this basically standalone website and you could share this, and you could grab this link, or you could embed this. You could take this and you could plug it into your existing website today. You could change your branding so it matches the branding of your website. So there's tons of possibilities of saying, hey, this doesn't even need to live entirely within SmartSuite. You could make this external facing to people as well. Now, I can't close a video without telling you one of the cool projects that I'm working on. This is still in its early stages, but one of the things I'm doing is I'm making a solution entirely for automating our full YouTube workflow. And I'm not just talking about, hey, we can schedule it and we can plan stuff on a calendar. I'm talking about it's fully integrated with the YouTube platform itself. So one of the things that we're doing is we're building a YouTube description generator. It's actually pulling from the video itself. It's finding all the timestamps. We're taking that, we're sending it into ChatGPT. We're pulling out timestamps. We're pulling in automatically shortened URLs that we're sending for our URL shortener. We're going to take all this information. We're going to generate these descriptions with a single click of a button. So that's something I'm really excited to work on, really eager to hear what it is that you're building with your dashboards. If you need any help with your SmartSuite dashboards or automation projects, don't hesitate to reach out to our website at automationhelpers.com, where we're offering free 30-minute consultations.